Hello, welcome to Everyday Experts, Season 1, Episode 8. Tonight I have the pleasure and privilege of bringing on two very interesting, intriguing, and when I say talented, it's probably an understatement of how talented these two are. There are a lot of things that they do. They currently are COO and CEO and president and vice president of co-branding, which is a marketing company, a job coaching in terms of establishing a business. They do strategy, they do design, they do web design, they do cold calls. They probably will help you set up the Keurig in your waiting room. Rachel Miller is one of the most talented graphic artists I've ever seen and met. Very helpful, sweetheart, super nice, always willing to help and listen. Helped me establish El Poeta Guasan and Carter Live Visions, helped me and Patty, and she was instrumental in helping me get my publishing company off the ground. And them, Becca is equally talented and was equally helpful. They was exquisite in helping me do all of the website design and social media and figuring out how to navigate the landscape. There's not a lot I don't think the two of them could not do together. It's not really Pinky and the Brain. It's Brain and the Brain. Or it's, if anybody knows the A-Team, it's Hannibal and Hannibal. Just two very intriguing and interesting people. And I'm very pleased to introduce Becca and Rachel. Matt, bring them in.
Hello.
Hi.
Hola.
How are we doing tonight?
How's it going?
It's going great. So before I start with my first question, I had a really deep and intellectual person tell me a quote that I like. It's not a matter of if it's hard, it's a matter of can I do it? Do you know who said that, Rachel?
I think I did it.
Yes, you did say that. You did say that.
Keep track. Do you have a little notebook of Rachel Miller quotes?
Since you asked, I have both your notes. I wrote down. I am always prepared. And it's a lot to go through because the two of you are just very accomplished and, very good at what you do. So, you ready to start?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Let's take flight then. So the first question I ask everybody, if you could be a vampire, a werewolf or wolf, a zombie, a ghost, or a serial killer, which one would the two of you pick and why?
I think I would be a ghost.
A lot of people have been saying ghost.
It's like non-intrusive and unviolent, but also like I can still fuck with people. But like in a mild yet impactful way.
Mild yet impactful. I love it.
That's what I would, I think, do. I feel like you're like,
What do you think I would be?
Oh, wait, hold on. Let Becca answer, and then you can answer for each other. We'll up the ante.
Okay. I was just gonna try to guess, but that's even better.
I think I would probably be a vampire because they have the best fashion sense, and because I think flying paces as a bat would be pretty cool. And also Rachel is mostly nocturnal already, so then we'd be able to actually hang out from the hours of midnight.
Accurate.
So now I'll ask Becca, what do you think Rachel would be?
I would say wolf only because I've seen the way you eat pasta.
Damn. It's been 5 minutes and we're already there. All right. Same. Serve. I've seen the way you eat the pasta. I can't finish.
Wow, way to be original.
No, I think that your ability to handle sunlight and that really lends itself to your vampire decision.
Yeah, the sun and I do not get along.
We went to Disney when we were like fresh out of college together. We were in Florida, and
I almost passed out.
We were in line for a ride, and Becca had been in the sun for maybe like 20 consecutive minutes, and it was like
it was more than that.
25, excuse me. But we had to go get like
a bottle of water and popcorn. So
after 30 minutes,
human shade.
It was like 102 degrees and sunny and humid, and I was not built for that.
Vampire.
So you're not much of an outdoor person?
Well, I am outdoorsy. I love hiking, but I'm very much like a fall winter hiker. Like I enjoy the beach, but not in the sunlight in the summertime.
We take the dog for a walk every day, and it's so funny because like on opposite days, one of us will comment like, "It's so nice today." Like when it's like warm and sunny, I'm like, "This is wonderful." And when it's like
70 and breezy, I'm
like a scene out of a 1700s horror book, Becca's like, "This is beautiful."
That's a great segue to a question that I hadn't planned on asking, but if the two of you each one of you could be in your own horror franchise, what franchise? And you can pick one that's established if you want. Which franchise do you think you'd want to be in?
There's something you should know about.
I don't know how you haven't put this together yet, Achilles.
I do not do horror.
The question is not, do you do horror? The question
I don't even know enough to pick one. I'm terrified.
Do you know who Freddy is?
Okay.
You know who Jason is?
Yeah. Well, I know Jason is like the mask guy.
Yeah. You know who Michael Myers is?
Isn't it Michael Myers? Austin.
Oh, not that Michael Myers. The other one. The one that looks like William Shatner.
You're much more equipped to answer this question.
No.
Yeah. Okay. I've seen.
We're not letting you cop out of it. Okay, you know what? We'll change. Becca, which horror franchise would you want to be in? And then I got a different question for you, Rachel.
I have a feeling.
I think regardless of the franchise, I don't think I do very well in it. Is Stranger Things an option? Like that's
of course it is.
That'd be
see you fitting right in. What's the stars name? 11, 16, 12, 42, 8?
11. 42.
11.
Stranger Things, starring 3.14159.
Today on Stranger Things, pie gets it too.
Oh my God. Pie is always time for pie. Cherry pie, apple pie.
Mathematical.
Can you calm down?
So Rachel, since you asked and you don't want to choose a horror, Loki, WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier, which one would you want to be in of the three?
Oh shit.
Okay, there's a Rachel question.
I liked Loki best. I know. Well, there's a lot to unpack there. But I would probably want to be in WandaVision. I love the way that they navigated the different time periods, and I think that's really fascinating. I like Wanda Maximoff a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that Agatha Harkness is a fucking riot. I think I would have so much fun.
That's who you would be. You would definitely be her.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Not probably.
Yeah.
There's like a 99.9218 round to the 16th power that you would be Harkness. I could see that.
Probably. That's right.
So we can go into the other questions now. So how did you grow up? Both of you. This is a question for both of you.
Why don't you take that one first?
So I'm the oldest of 6. So I grew up with a family of 8. We were all homeschooled. So our mom stayed home and was basically in charge of our education. up until my senior year of high school. So I spent a brief amount of time for most of senior year in a public school before graduating and then going off to college where I met this one. So it was a little crazy growing up. It was a lot of people for sure, not a whole lot of privacy. But we always had someone to play with. You know, like something was always happening around our house. Like that was cool. Like there was never a dull moment for sure.
What was the culture shock like being homeschooled for the first like 15, 16 years of your life, and then, oh, hey, let's put her in high school, her senior year. I'm sorry.
Life really, right?
Yeah, I went into
really the formative years.
I went into public school when I was 17. So it was something that I had actually wanted for a while. Like ever since I was, you know, kind of 8th, 9th grade, I was like, hey, like I want to try public school. And my mom just didn't think it was a good idea at the time. I wore her down, obviously. But definitely just like, obviously I thought that I lived with a lot of people, but then like going to school, you have like, you know, 15, 20 kids in a class, you walk through the hallways in between periods and it's like just teeming with people. Like that was super different. Fire drills are a thing. That was weird.
I can't even imagine like if you're homeschooled.
At least I got to take my winter coat. Otherwise I would have like the homeschooling fire precaution is a little fold up hanging ladder in our bedroom that we would train and like throw it out the window and climb.
Did you actually do as a kid?
Only once or twice when we first got it, but it was a thing that happened. So I guess that counts.
Did you try to push your siblings out the window? I mean, low key, not low key.
No, I was the oldest. I was the one who was like ready to smack hands if someone else tried to shove someone out the window.
I'll be right back. I'm gonna evict this child from the Big Brother house. This is not cooperating.
But yeah, so the amount of people was just a lot. Getting used to actually having teachers like present you the information was quite novel. I essentially taught myself for, you know, the majority of it. Obviously, like I have a lot of younger siblings. My mom was mostly spending her time with them, unless there was something that I needed help with. So all of a sudden learning was much easier for me because I realized finally that I actually work much better in a group. And when I have other people to like bounce ideas off of, like I'm that asshole who actually likes group projects. I'm like, cool, we get to work together. And everyone else is like, oh, great.
Do you think you liked it more because you didn't have any of that, and that's why you're like, oh.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I think I probably would have ended up like just as jaded as everyone else if I had been in public school the whole time. I think it was definitely a short enough period of time that it was still an enjoyable novelty for me. It was like, oh, I get to ride the bus to school. How great.
How great. Well, I feel like, oh, that's a good question.
Thank you. Jimmy, was I brought up religious? What was the rationale for homeschooling? Yes, my mom is Roman Catholic, very religious. My dad is Jewish, but he doesn't really practice. So they kind of talked when I was born, and my mom felt really strongly about homeschooling for a couple of different reasons. So number one, she wanted a religious education for me and for my siblings, but that's pretty expensive for one child, let alone 6. So homeschooling was just a much more affordable option. And obviously, like she preferred like to have more control over our education and to know like, I love her. She's a little bit of a control freak. So like the idea of like being able to really like handpick the textbooks and everything.
Well, she is a very highly educated person. She has 2 degrees, like just for her bachelor's.
Yeah, one in math and one in engineering.
Wait, I got it. Your mom has a math and engineering bachelor's degree?
Mm-hmm. She's a very smart person, so it makes sense that she would want to be so hands-on.
Yeah, she's super intelligent, like definitely like one of the more qualified people, I think, when you like see homeschool families. So I definitely got a super solid education. But yeah, like our social life was a little bit weird. So, I mean, a lot of church activities. I was in choir. You know, we had like vacation Bible school in the summer. We had
all right, hold on. I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt. Was vacation Bible school?
I did that too. I did that too.
was Vacation Bible School like band camp? Like one time at Vacation Bible School?
For Jesus.
Kind of, I guess. I've never been to band camp, although, like, if I had been in public school, I probably would have been. I don't know how everyone does it, but the way that the church that I grew up going to did it, it was like 1 week in the summer from like 9 a.m. to like 2 p.m. And like you come and you drop your kids off and you're separated like into groups based on like what grade you're in. And you go to these little like stations throughout the day. So there's like a craft station and a snack station and a music station. And you go to each one for like, I don't know, 30 or 45 minutes. And someone like tells a Bible story and talks about like, you know, the message of the story. And then like you do an activity that relates to it. So little like marshmallow and pretzel stick crosses for snack time and like.
How long did that go on?
Oh no, it's one full week and you're there every day.
I had the same. Was yours themed?
Yes. Yeah, we had like island vacation, whatever. So like they decorated like the gym of the local like Catholic school with like streamers and like hula skirts and everything. And like all of the music that week was like bongos and like flutes and ukuleles and stuff.
See, I went one time. I'll never forget.
So, well, you can go tell me about your Vacation Bible camp.
I just find it interesting because mine was Africa themed. And it was the weirdest thing I've ever. Okay, so like, I'm sure Africa is a beautiful place to go. I have not been myself. I would like to. I know people who went there on their honeymoon. Great. But like, that makes sense. That theme makes sense. We literally sang a song called Jumbo for Jesus, or Jumbo to Jesus. My mom still calls me up singing it. This was maybe 15 years ago. And it's all like, is the Jumbo Swahili? I'm not entirely sure of exactly the language. I know it's spoken natively somewhere in Africa. Mm-hmm. I apologize for my ignorance. But I just remember going around and there were just elephants everywhere. And they were like, but Jesus is here too. And I was like, so weird. That was it. That was start and end Bible school. Goodbye. And my mom didn't even enroll me. My friend's mom did. Because I was staying with them for a week and she was like, perfect time for Jesus to enter your life. And I was like, no. Yeah, so that's
awesome.
So funny. Yeah. So I attended for several years. And then when I was too old to attend, I volunteered for several years. So I was one of like the student assistants.
You volunteered or were volunteered?
Both, I guess. Okay. A little bit of both.
Okay. So Rachel, you growing up, what was your growing up like? I know you go homeschooled till you were 19.
No, I was homeschooled till I was 47. No, I had kind of a polar opposite upbringing from Becca. I did go to Catholic school for 8 years, but I was an only child. My dad, so similar. My mom's Roman Catholic. My dad was Jewish. So that was a really funny similarity when we met. We were like bonding people like that. Like, okay,
there's two of us.
Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, that's just continued to. We like to say that we have shared custody of the same brain cell that just kind of
one single brain cell that just pings back and forth between the two of us.
But I grew up in a tight-knit, like grandma makes gravy on Sundays Italian family. My dad was in the music industry, so he worked with a lot of big names. He was a recording engineer. I had really bad food allergies, so my mom was really hands-on in keeping me safe and I still have them. No, there was no magic overnight cure, but you know, it was a big deal when I was a kid because like that wasn't really a thing. So in that sense, I kind of grew up in a bit of a bubble, but definitely not that bubble that Becca grew up in. But there was a lot of music. There was.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, there was less.
There's a picture I love. She can't have been more than like what 4 or 5 with a guitar the size of her entire body, just like.
Well, I got my first guitar. I was 3, and I started.
You got your first guitar when you were 3.
I got my first keyboard when I was 1, and my mom likes to tell this story that I was in like I must have had like strep or something. Like I was a little kid. I was like 2. And we were in the doctor waiting room and there was like a xylophone and I was like bopping around on it with my little tiny baby hands. And apparently I went over to her and I was like, Mom, I figured out happy birthday. And she was like, what the fuck? And I did, apparently. Like she's very proud of my pediatrician office performance. But that
The
was
deep cuts.
yeah, the back wall tracks. But that was really like, I couldn't tell you if I was naturally drawn to it or if it was just something that like it was in my house and it was just like as normal as you brush your teeth and you practice your chords. Like that's just what you do. Like, you know, I didn't really, you know, that was very not normal.
Wait, so there's both very, and you know, this is pushing ahead a little bit, but and we'll come back to it. But you're both just musically inclined.
We met.
Sure that,
How we
I don't know
met.
how you get through life being able to pick up a piano at 1 and a guitar at 3.
The piano at 1. I taught myself piano during lunch senior year of high school.
Well, I think that's an important thing too, is that like for me it was always a thing, but I didn't put in a lot of effort. And Becca's like a very like get it done, like studious person. And I'm just kind of like, I'm here and I'm doing a thing and I don't know, I figured it out. Like, you know, so that's kind of like an interesting metaphor.
But it's different sides to the same like high savant. I'm not saying savant, but like high just ability to, you know, to just be able to pick it up and play, and then to teach yourself. You taught yourself. But how long did it take you to teach yourself opera, Becca? Like 5 minutes or something? You were like,
I didn't opera until I went to college. I had professionals to teach me how to do that.
and you learned opera.
As much as one can in 4 years.
Becca's really, really good singing classes.
You taught yourself opera. Didn't you learn opera in like 45 minutes?
Audition.
Yeah,
she had like
so-
2 weeks to pretend to be a classical singer.
Again, not the most studious human being. I gigged a
You
lot.
just get carried away with big ideas. Like you get a big idea and you're like, cool, let's go, let's do it right now.
Yeah, and then I go like hard, and then that's it. It's dead. So I was a like professional gigging musician in high school, and then the deal with my parents was finish high school and then I could do whatever I wanted, and I wasn't going to go to college. And I was like, fuck it, I'll go to college. So I didn't take an SAT, so I had to go to community college, and I kind of bopped around a lot. But my style was always much more like rock. Whereas Becca, I think you came from more of a classical background.
Yeah, a lot more like choral stuff,
Yeah.
at least. Less
I
solo.
did choral things like in Catholic school, but it was much more like contemporary and less like, and Bach is here, you know, like that wasn't really a thing. And when I went to college, I worked a lot with kids. I realized I fell in love with teaching. I wanted to transfer to a school for an ed degree. And I realized that the only 2 ways to get in were to do jazz, which you had to like confidently scat, which no,
That is really hard.
Blue Ken. That is so hard. Like, I can't confidently go up and like speak prepared nonsense, let alone like improvise. No. So the other option was classical, and I had no interest, but it was the only way to get into this program that I really wanted to get into. So I reached out to my coach that I had just worked with like a few times prior, and I was like, hey, I need to pretend to be an opera singer next week. Can you help me? So we can only afford 1 lesson. We took the 1 lesson, and there's this song.
But she still made it in.
Somehow, by a miracle. There's this song, Caro Mio Ben, that I did for my audition.
Oh, yeah.
And my dad came to the lesson, and it was about the same time that like the Star Wars like newer franchise happened, and he followed me around the house singing "Poor Kylo Ren" to the tune for literally the entire time up to my audition, to the point where I literally had to remind myself on stage at the audition, this is not a Star Wars song. As a matter of fact, this is Italian. But yeah, by some miracle, I got in. And the first day, the first class, this weirdo was sitting next to me. Here we are,
answering all of the questions.
Literally like Hermione Granger.
Pick me, son.
That's
yeah.
So you guys are almost like bookends to the Encyclopedia Britannica of art.
we came from opposite backgrounds and ended up in the same place. But it works because like, not to, get too corny, but like I feel like we round each other out really well. And it started with schoolwork because like they were really studious and I was just kind of like intense. So like I would lay on the structure and I would lay on like, we're going to do this and we're going to do that and this is how we're going to do it. And they were like, well, here's all the information that you don't have. And I was like, great. And then, you know, we got each other through, and that drifted into a friendship and into a work relationship, and like just continues to be this interesting thing that like balances in a way that I think is really something that I didn't know could exist. I'm being too nice to you. It's over.
So
No.
you're nice, so stop it. Something else that the mind that is Rachel created. You said speaking your mind as it translates to you. I think that applies to both of you. How would you interpret that if I tell you that?
My own words. I don't know. I mean, I think.
You too, Becca.
Yeah, you didn't say the words, so do the thing.
But you're the one who said them,
Yeah,
so you
yeah.
should be able to explain them.
I guess I should. Okay, fair. Touche. I think that the most important thing that we can do in our lives and in our careers, when we're starting a business, when we're, you know, moving forward in a business or relationship, within our own inner work, is just being honest. And not the kind of honest that's like, hey, sorry, I took $5 from your wallet last week, but the kind of honest that's like the hard truths, you know, and the hard hitting questions that you ask yourself that you kind of don't even like the answers to, but you have to, you know, accept them and face them. And I think that a lot of us worry a lot about how we're perceived and how those truths come out more than, like, that's more the priority than speaking them to begin with and them. And I think that everyone has a unique perspective and a unique way of communicating and a unique way of interpreting things. And that should be embraced and also should be, you know, kind of the medium for that truth to come through as opposed to something to hide from. I guess that's
you said, I guess. I like how you expose wisdom and then you're like, well, yeah, I guess.
That's I think a good way to describe me as a person. Like, that's
it's like, oh, you want some coffee? Drop some profound wisdom. Be like, oh, you know, I don't know what I'm saying.
Maybe something like that.
Yeah.
Becca, speaking your mind as it translates to you, and you do speak your mind, and you have other things that go on that encapsulate you, but, you know, just how do you speak your mind as it translates to you?
I think speaking your mind for me is less about the actual words that you speak and more about your actions and how you express yourself more in nonverbal ways. You know, like everything that we do, that we say, that, you know, we wear, you know, that we look like, people will make snap judgments. That's just part of humanity. So, you know, being true to yourself and, you know, not letting other people's perceptions of you might be, I think is something that's really important to me. So for me, speaking my mind might be, you know, like the clothes that I wear, like, you know, wearing makeup or not, you know, if you wear like a band tee, like, what is that saying about you? Like, if you listen to, you know, all of that, like, speaking your mind isn't just about like saying things, it's about what you do as well. Yeah.
You guys, I feel like you guys rehearse your answers. You're like so in sync. It's awesome.
No,
that's the single brain cell again.
That would be it.
Thanks.
We can be friends. Yeah, we were not preparing before this. We were eating dinner
and watching Bob's Burgers.
It was not very formal.
That's very formal. So
put on our bras, one boob at a time.
Yeah, really,
like everyone else.
I love that show.
So to talk about the yin and yang of your existence as co-everything, co-roommates, co-workers, co-partners, and stuff like that. Like you guys are very balanced. Again, Rachel, you said you like to catastrophize everything. And I feel like Becca is very grounding.
Yeah, and that's something that happens in our dynamic a lot. So I think first of all, something that's really weird that we've kind of nailed over the years, but it was hard to get there, is kind of compartmentalizing the different aspects of this like platonic partnership that we have, because we started out as classmates, and then we ended up being friends, and then we ended up being coworkers, and then we ended up being roommates, and then we ended up starting a company together. Like there were just all of these different ways that we, kind of like leached into each other's existence, like aggressively. And I think, one important thing that we've been able to do is to be able to say like, hey, I need friend brain right now. Like turn off your work brain. Like, if someone's stressed out about work or whatever, hey, like I need to talk to you as a human being, not as like, my web designer. I need to talk to you as my friend, or like, hey, this thing at school is hard, but I don't want to talk about my feelings about it. I just need help getting it into my thick ass skull. Like different things like that. I think learning how to respect those boundaries and function within them is really important. But it's interesting. It was really there was one event that made us grow really close, and it wasn't really like on purpose. Like I don't really think we thought it was going to happen. We had an education class that we took together. This was maybe like the third or fourth class that we took together in college. And we were like, that person that always pops up in your class. So we would like hang out, but we weren't like
lend each other homework, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And we would like talk about class and whatever. And like Becca was always a really good friend from day one. Like, I have allergies sensitive enough that I can't be around certain foods. And most people are like, well, fuck you, don't be by my snack. And I'm like, I breathe air, I'm sorry. And Becca came to me the second day, I think, of school and was like, I did some research and I found these fig bars that are produced in a nut-free facility. Like the level of compassion and consideration from day one was really like jarring and not something I was used to. Like I was kind of ostracized growing up. I wasn't used to someone that was just like, hi, I barely know you, but I accept you as who you are and I'm going to make an effort. Like it was refreshing. But we ended up for the education class needing to go to an Orff music seminar, which is like it was
basically like an educational convention in Atlantic City over like a weekend.
We figured we'd share a hotel room because it was cheaper
and like carpool down together, like just make it easier.
But like we barely knew each other. So like we went from like, hey, it's that person from my class to like, yeah, let's
spend 3 days straight together.
And we came back just like this, and it just kind of kept going.
The trick is that she put on Christina Perri in the car on the way down, and we kept trying to sing the same harmonies and yelling at each other for trying to sing the same harmonies.
So
I love it.
You think the same way. What is that?
Just singer thing.
Yeah. So, and then it kind of snowballed in that like, wait, you too? Just kind of kept and now we do everything together.
And we take a lot of turns. Like I think one of the things that works really well for us, like that we've gotten to in our lives, like we're very good at alternating mental breakdowns. So, Tuesday, it's let's put Rachel's life back together. Friday, it's let's make Becca's life make sense. And, we're both very good at being there for each other and recognizing when the other one like needs a check-in or needs some space.
Like the catastrophizing versus groundedness. Yeah. Like I'm a very intense person. Like
no.
Yeah, I know. You can't tell.
Bright red hair, shocker.
I can get in my head, in a big way. I have big ideas, but I kind of get lost in them sometimes. And it's hard to like, and Becca will literally just like come over and grab my head and start scratching it and be like, stop.
And I help you break it down into like little steps, and then you make the color coded together
for you. Yeah, it's interesting because like then you'll sometimes be in a place where like it's kind of too much to conceptualize, and I'll be like, oh, we'll just boop, 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 and then we're good. It's interesting. It's very much a unique, I think, opposites filling each other out kind of deal.
I can totally see that working with both of you. So we're gonna go back a little bit just to high school. you said, I know you threw it out in passing, like, oh yeah, I used to gig in high school. And I know, Becca, you also very much involved in music in a different sort of way. It's interesting that graphic design, all that stuff has kept you guys united, but you kind of share the music. So tell me about music in high school, you're gigging, and Becca, how you're, I'm assuming, gospel, choir, you know, I'm not going to say that.
Sounds just like you. What did you play? Was it Lollapalooza?
Bamboozle.
Bamboozle.
Yeah, I played on a lot of things with a lot of people.
Okay.
And it was cool. Like, I remember I was 16 and I found out that I was playing a festival with my favorite band of all time. And I was like, and I found out in the middle of geometry class that I got the gig.
Wow.
And I remember just freaking out and like not finishing my homework for a while.
Like 2 years, yeah, I know.
Talk about your stuff. Like, I feel like that's much more interesting.
Wait, hold on. First of all, this is a Achilles show, Rachel.
I'm sorry.
I'm just messing around. No, but I want to hear about the gigging. And Becca, you'll be able to go in 1 second. I want to hear about the gigging because I think that sets the tone for a lot of the things you do. Because
Sorry, talk about Vanessa.
Oh my God. Okay, so I played my first show when I was 10. And it got progressively more serious. I had bands, it never really worked out. People thought I was too serious and they didn't want to hang out with me.
You were too serious? Wow.
Yeah, I know, right? Who would think that? One day, so there was this local band, kids that were in my class, and their dad was kind of managing them. And I had opened for them with my band a couple times. And I was at the orthodontist's office. It was actually, it was 2 days before my 16th birthday, and the guy I was dating had dumped me, and my band kicked me out, like, within 24 hours. And I was I was, like, pissed. And I'm sitting in the orthodontist's office because I needed to get the, like, rubber bands on my braces changed or something. And this guy was sitting there. His kids were, I guess, in the back doing dentist things. And he was like, hey, they have a gig next month. Will you guys open? And I was like, you know, all like in my feelings about it. I was like, well, I don't have a band anymore. So I can't. And he was like, and just do it. And I guess, like, I grew up really, you know, I was an only child. I kind of grew up afraid of the concept of doing things by myself and afraid of like being lonely. So I really like clung on to people. And the idea of doing it myself had never really been a thing. And I played like a lot of instruments. Like I did end up doing it myself, and I did end up like filling out arrangements and recordings and stuff, but it wasn't something that I ever thought I was capable of or anyone would be interested in. So I opened for them, and the previous year they had done this battle of the bands called the Break Contest, which does not exist anymore. But it did, and it was a big deal at the time. Everyone was excited about it. I was like, hey, tell me about that contest thing. And they were like, oh, if you win, you play Bamboozle, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, I'm freshly 16, just starting out by myself, not even sure if I want to do it. But I was like, I'll try it. Mm-hmm. So my round of the contest, it was in 3 different states and a bunch of different venues, and like 400 bands were in it. And there were only 5 solo artists in the whole thing, because it was really like a battle of the bands. It wasn't supposed to be a solo artist thing. And I looked so out of place. I remember the first level of the competition, someone came up to me and asked me to hold a balloon for them because they thought that I was like someone's roadie. They were like, can you hold this for me? And I'm literally standing there like, sure, I'm not doing anything. You know, like, thank you for the balloon. But, you know, I definitely did not look like someone that would be taken seriously. And I think that's something that's happened a lot. I mean, I'm a woman and I'm covered in tattoos, you know, a lot of reasons to not take me seriously. But at the time it was like, and you're a fetus. So I ended up, the roster for the festival was coming out, and it was Bon Jovi, and it was, you know, Foo Fighters, and it was like all of these big names, and I was like, who am I? But the contest rounds kept going on, and eventually it's the finals, and I'm one of the only solo acts left, and there were only 100 people left in the whole competition. And I ended up getting disqualified mainly because I just wasn't in a band, which I get it. Like, that's what the contest is for. But they had a social media sponsor that year. So they let that social media sponsor basically have like a vote, and the most popular person was given a spot on the festival. And by some Christmas miracle, that was me. So I ended up, my dressing room was downstairs from Bon Jovi. And I was like, what am I doing here? And I remember there was in the dressing room this like gigantic tub filled with lemonade. And I brought my childhood best friend with me because I didn't have a band and I didn't want to go by myself. And I remember every time we walked in the room, she was so like amazed all over again by the lemonade. She was like, I can't believe this is here. And I was like, we just saw it 15 minutes ago. Like, it was that kind of just like surreal, like Miley Cyrus's brothers at our sound check and blah, blah, blah. And My Chemical Romance is playing. And like, it was just a crazy, crazy thing. And that kind of jump started things for me. So all of a sudden I went from like, yeah, I guess I'll do this to like, I had management approaching me and I had people wanting recordings and like things were, getting intense. And from there I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but I guess I'm going to have to learn. And I was going to a technical school for graphic design and marketing. So I used that to promote myself. And then I started using it to promote other musicians. And, my dad had a lot of experience in the industry, so he was really helpful. But it was like I was booking my stuff. I wasn't like, Dad, get me a gig. Like, he was very much like, I'll tell you how to do the thing. I'll give you advice if you ask me for it, but I'm going to respect that, like, this is your thing. And, if you need me, I'm here, but I'm not going to micromanage you, which was really cool. He was really supportive. And so was my mom. I was lucky. I never had parents that were like, how dare you do an arts, you loser? You're not a doctor. Like, I was very fortunate because I know a lot of people didn't have that support, but I did.
Right.
In fact, kind of to the opposite, because I had people in my family who came up to me when I decided to get a corporate management job, and they were like, you were so much cooler when you played gigs. I was like, thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate
it. That one hurt, but yeah, I was gigging a lot. I had my callback for The Voice senior year. I wasn't going to go to college. I wasn't going to do anything. I was ready to go. And a couple of things happened. I went on tour the summer after I graduated high school and got super burnt out and hated touring. Hated it. Because my dates when I was younger were always like one weekend show because I was in school. And once it was like, okay, you can do this full time. It's so exhausting to have to be on all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It is so exhausting. And when you're the product, you're the face of it, but you're also doing all the things behind the scenes. Like, it's basically wake up, drive. So I had a minivan that I got from a family friend for $2 and a sticker and a gift card to Chili's. Because she was like, give me whatever you have in your pocket. I'm just trying to get rid of this thing. So I was like, here's what I got. And
with no AC.
Yeah, there was no AC. It was a really hot summer. My dad made one out of a USB fan and a styrofoam cooler and a bunch of ice that ended up like molding the shit out of the van. It was disgusting. But yeah, we drove around for a couple weeks and played a bunch of gigs in like Philly and the city and Connecticut and like, the whole like kind of Northeast coast deal. And by the end of it, I was like, I don't know about that. Like, that was a lot. And I don't know if I can do that forever. And at the same time, I had met a guy that I really liked and who I was like, I would really like to settle down at some point, and I think I want to do it with that one. Like,
We're gonna come back to that about falling in love. I got you. Don't worry. I wrote it down.
But that's basically why it stopped. Was I was getting burnt out, and I still played gigs throughout college. But as time went on, I was getting more and more burnt out. And then we ended up running an after-school music program. And by the end of work, it was for a big company. And by the end of that job, I was basically like, I need a break from music altogether. Like, I'm tired. It was like I would drive home from work in silence because the radio was overwhelming. Like,
wow.
So I, it's still very much who I am, and it's still something I do all the time. But I realized at some point that it had to be something that I do for myself and not for other people. And I think there's a lot of pressure to do it for other people from a young age, which makes it less fun. It makes it less enjoyable and more like you have to be a certain thing. And it didn't work for me. And that's my story.
So I want to read you one of the comments real quick before I let you go, Becca. Jimmy Nails is actively shocked you two aren't an item.
No, I'm surprised.
I'm not.
No, you know what? A lot of people think that, and we do live together in separate bedrooms. But fast forwarding a bit, I did end up with that guy, and yeah,
We like him. He can stay.
Yeah, he can stay. He's watching the dog.
Okay, good.
No, I am. No. That's so funny.
But he said it like 4 times, and he's like totally enamored with the idea that you guys are an item, which I think
So sorry to disappoint, but no.
Okay.
We love each other a lot, just in a very not that kind of way.
Yeah.
Is that how you put it? Yeah.
I love you, but I don't want to date you.
Yeah, no. Same.
Oh, that would be a horror movie. So Becca, choir.
So my music is a little bit different. I started out, just my family was super musical. We had the radio on a lot. My mom always had a CD on in the car. Both of my parents, sing for fun. They have really good voices. My dad played piano a little bit when I was growing up. But it really kind of jump started for me when I was like 12, 13, and I joined church choir. And the schedule did not work out for me to join the actual kids choir, which was like, 6th through 8th grade or whatever it was. So my mom talked to the choir director, who agreed to take me on for a trial period in the adult choir. So there's little, baby Becca with my straight across bangs and, my little glasses, singing, 12 years old, singing next to like all the grandmas and grandpas in church choir.
You know what that's like? You ever see the movie Matilda? With like the little kid that was like such a soul and was like, "Can I have the children's books?" Like that's Becca.
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
I love it.
So I did that for a couple of years. Eventually, one of the cantors or song leaders at the church moved and retired, and the director asked me if I wanted to do it. I was scared shitless, but I tried it out and loved it and did that for several years as well. So then in high school, when I went to public school, I was in the women's choir, and I ended up having a study hall later in the year at the end of the day at exactly the same time as the honors choir. And I had missed the auditions because she always auditions the year before for honors choir. But she came up to me and she was like, "Listen, like I need more voices in honors choir and I think you're the one. I will write you a pass and you can just have a standing pass to like skip study hall and come, sing in honors choir." So I did that with her. And at the time, I had no idea what I wanted to do for college. I was thinking like maybe something with like English or literature or something like that. But I was undeclared everywhere that I had applied because I had no idea.
I forgot that you were going to do English.
And
yes, that's what we like about them.
Well, that makes so much sense if you know Becca.
I will read an entire book in like 3 hours.
Yes.
But so May,
creative fiction, fan fiction, essays, persuasive
everything,
essays.
Sci-fi, fantasy, everything. So May of my senior year, I was like, you know what? My choir teacher is really cool. Choir has been amazing. I wish I had learned this stuff earlier. I could see myself doing something like this. So I was like, "Hey mom, hey dad, I think I want to do music education." And they were like, "Okay, where did this come from? Are you sure?" My mom was a little skeptical. She didn't think it was like a super solid career choice. But all of the universities and colleges that I had applied to, I know who that is.
Shout out to Becca's sister.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining.
So So none of the places that I had applied to had a music program except for one. And it happened to have one of the best music education programs like in the area. And it was too late for me to apply as an actual music ed student. So I applied for a different degree. But I went to the advisors my first day and I said, listen, I'm here to study music ed. I'm going to take the audition. I'm going to pass. Put me in the classes now.
The balls on this one.
So they agreed to get me into all of the classes that I would need as a freshman, except for my private voice lessons, which was pending my audition. And when the audition came around, I did it. I got in and spent the next 3 years studying, classical and opera and art song and all of that stuff.
I remember the first time I heard you do like a midday performance. It was like the most shocking, like, you would expect them to be good, but like, it was like fucking like Met Opera good. And I was like, I just ate like the most messy, like French fries and burger meal in my car with you. And you come out here and spit out this like golden voice. Like it's really impressive. It is a big, really, really beautiful voice. It really is. And, so it's,
I want to take 1 second to just point out how immensely under-talented I feel right now. Hold on. Because you two have spent the whole show, we've been on for 51 minutes, you spent the whole show just telling me accolades and achievements and how
that's because you have both of us here.
How amazing you
the other one up.
Yeah, really. Otherwise we'd be like, I suck.
Well,
also to throw an Achille Carter quote at people, you write, I art.
Yeah,
so
we have like 8 of your
so
books on my bookshelf. So
your upcoming book that I've had the privilege, I didn't tell you, I have a copy. And I've had the privilege to get a little sneak preview. I'll share with you later, if that's okay.
We have no secrets.
Like you have a lot of talent too.
Thank you.
No, I know. Just like don't shit on yourself. Like it's just different stuff that you do. That's
no. So what I was gonna say is that there's talent and then there's like anomalies. And anybody who knows me, I always say be an anomaly. And you guys just the level of talent that you have and the accolades and what you represent. I know they, them, you represent they, them. But for women, for they, them, for your community, it's a lot. And you guys kick ass and you're awesome. And I think you spend so much time like, yeah, we're just normal. But you're not. So I don't want to hear any more negativity about how I'm surprised it was a miracle and blah, blah, blah. So if I was to tell you both that you're somebody I would want my daughter to look up to, how would you guys respond to that?
I'm a little
teary. Damn. Okay.
I mean, we've worked with a lot of kids, like trying to help them just, I wouldn't want someone to like look at my life as like a roadmap. I fucked up a lot of stuff.
I think it's really easy to see all of the ways that somebody does have their life together.
Yeah, and
not the little cracks that we patch up every other day.
But I think if there's anything that I would want someone to learn from the life that I've lived so far, it's that you don't have to be anything in particular for anyone. Like things that people tell you can't do, the things that people tell you shouldn't do, or that you feel societal pressure to not do, like it's bullshit, like if you want something, if you care about something, if you're passionate about something, if it's who you are, be honest with yourself, be honest with the people around you, and be honest with your path, and I think like I haven't done everything right. I'm not a perfect person and I'm a total fucking mess, like, half the time. Who isn't, but it's about like, do you take that chance on yourself or do you just keep existing, Are you living your life? Like there have been plenty of places along the way where I was like, I don't know about this. I mean, with gigging, with that first step, doing that contest, even down to I'm going to apply for this corporate management job that I'm not qualified for, I'm going to quit that corporate management job. I'm going to start a business with literally no savings. Let's see what happens. Like it's, thank you.
We are getting there, sister. I promise you. We'll be there. Give us like 15 minutes.
We'll get there. But I think the main point is like, you can either spend your entire life thinking, what if I did the thing? Or you can spend like however long it takes just doing the thing. And if it doesn't work out, you do the next thing. That's not the end. You didn't fail. You set out to do the thing. You did the thing. Whether it panned out the way you planned or not. I think that's the main thing that I would want someone to take away. Not that I'm like a perfect role model human being, but that like.
But who is?
Exactly. It's just be an imperfect human being,
Anomaly.
About yourself.
Yeah. Becca, please elucidate for the people. I want my daughter to look up to someone like you. What do you say to that in response?
Thank you. I think my big advice would be to embrace change and that you're never locked into one thing. I think especially for me, like from my experience, whether that is something like, your gender and sexuality, or it's just something like, the movies that you like and the bands that you listen to, like, change is a natural part of life, a natural progression of life. So don't resist it. And if you find that some part of your life is not serving you in the way that it used to, it's okay to let that go. So don't, hang on to things just because. Don't hang on to things past their prime because they are not going to serve you.
That's very deep and profound. So, right? Right? I know. You guys trying to make me look bad. So, I want to go into the School of Rock now. That's what it was called, correct? Where you guys put your finger marks and fingerprints all over the school, made it amazing. And then when the man came in and destroyed it and broke it down, and then that's how we kind of launched into that.
It was a very important experience for both of us, I think. I was there teaching, which I had never taught a vocal lesson in my life, and I wasn't looking for a job. So let me back up for a second, if that's okay. I worked since I was 12, and I frequently worked 4 jobs at a time. That was like normal. I thought that was what you were supposed to do. I didn't really understand the whole like do your thing and then go home. What's that? What do you do there? So I was working the coat check room at a strip club, teaching music lessons, doing freelance design, and being a booking promoter for a music band.
That's it?
And then gigging, and then going to school. And
going to school.
Then I switched out the strip club environment that I really was not comfortable in to go to my partner's parents have a security training business, and they were like, hey, come do customer service stuff with us.
Customer service?
Yeah,
that is so...
So I did that for a while, which was good because I was terrified of talking on the phone beforehand, and I got a lot better at that. Like I wouldn't.
Yeah, now we can't get her to shut up, right?
It's a problem.
I love you both equally, and your voices dance in my ears no matter what. Go ahead.
Achilles, you're such a sweet human being.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course. So I wasn't looking for a job, but at the time, my partner was up studying. He was in grad school. He's a chemist. He was up in Massachusetts, and I would drive up every weekend and, live half the week there and then come home and live my life here. And I crammed all my school and work schedule into a few days. And I was about to start at the college that we both went to. And I was like, it might make my life easier if I have a job in town where I'm going to be going to school and like maybe, I don't know, something in my field.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that the school was hiring a vocal instructor. And apparently they weren't very like receptive to hiring people quickly, but they were really in a pinch. So I ended up like applying for fun. It was the only time that I ever like had an interview in my life, like at that point. And quickly like had the job and had students within like a week. Like it happened really fast. And I ended up really loving it. And the more I fell in love with education in that place, the more I fell out of love with education in like the traditional public school sense. So I ended up switching. Becca finished with their ed degree. I did not. And I ended up, so what, like 6 months into me being there, we needed another teacher. And I was like, hey, you were doing the bank in DSW.
I had 3 jobs at the time in college. I was a bank teller for a small local branch of a bank. I was a just like customer service sales associate at a shoe store. And I was also a security guard at a like shipping and receiving warehouse.
Yeah. And we were talking a lot about like the ridiculous hours.
Like my schedule was nuts.
And you lived in like fucking Narnia. So you were commuting to all these places. And so one day we were talking and I was like, hey, why don't you come teach with me? So I brought them in and the manager was like, cool, stay here. And that was basically it. So we were teaching together. And then we had a lot of changeover in management. And at about the same time I decided to switch my major, I realized that I was much more interested in the administration side. I really like organizing things, operations, problems.
Being a boss bitch. Let's say a boss bitch. That's all. I know.
No, I think it's more like
being a boss bitch.
Being there for people and figuring out how to make things work the best they can. And I ended up like there were problems with management. And I had parents coming directly to me in my lesson room, like sneaking in like illegal under the table meetings, being like, what do I do? There's a problem with the manager. And I was like, I don't know, I'm 12. Like I think I was just 21 at the time. And it was crazy. Like my parents were getting divorced. I felt like my entire planet was falling apart. I had just switched my major in college. And the same day I go to work and I showed up a teacher and I left with both full-time administrative jobs. I left with general manager and music director as my title with no training. And they were like, we're not going to come train you. At the time it was owned by a franchisee that was based out of Texas. So they really were very hands-off with our school. Like our school was like, why do you even own this? This has nothing to do with you. Right. And it wasn't doing well at the time. So I think they were just like, fuck it, give the kid a job, whatever, we need someone. Yeah. So they didn't train me. They were like, hey, call us if you have a question. Bye, you start tomorrow.
Figure it out.
And I was like, okay. And, you know, things at home were hard at the time. Like my parents were splitting. I didn't have any siblings to go through it with. My partner was my rock, you know, but I threw myself into the school in every way that I could. I was like, I live here. This is my life now. And finally, you know, the student count started increasing. I found a lot of problems. I learned a lot on the fly.
Honed your spreadsheet skills.
Yeah. Within 5 months, we had a budget to have the music director and general manager finally be the 2 jobs they needed to be. So obviously, if I had any say, this one was going to be the music director. So they were. And then within 8 months of my starting, the student count had doubled. And it went from being a school to a successful school. And then we got acquired by the corporate parent company instead of the franchisee. We had a lot more help. You know, but there's a lot. Corporate management for any company is basically being a professional no man. You know, it's basically, all you are is a vessel for people with very valid concerns and feelings and things to say, and, you know, a corporate entity restricted by volume and logistics. And the easiest thing to say is no. Easier to say when you don't have to see the people and hear them. And, you know, I was basically, the kids referred to me as the school therapist. I was basically like a rock and roll principal. But also for my team of 18, I was the no person, and it sucked.
It was hard. Gear would break all the time, and we would be denied the budget that we needed to replace it. Staff were denied raises because we just didn't have the budget for payroll.
That was my breaking point. Was I got written up for having too high of a payroll for the school, but I also had people coming to me every day saying, I can't afford to work here.
Right.
So I would try to give them more hours, and then I would get written up. And it's like, if you can't afford to pay a livable wage, don't have people, you know, like, so that I think was eye-opening for both of us. We also learned how to work as a team and problem solve together, because we didn't know how to do our taxes, and all of a sudden we're running
for yourself.
Okay, I didn't know how to do a lot of adult shit. I had never sent things at a post office. Like, I had never done a lot of very like easy adult things. We had to take care of the building. Oh my God,
the
flooding,
ceiling kept falling down. The ceiling tiles rotting away.
It was crazy, and we were there like constantly. Like, it was basically our house for a while. I ended up stepping down and then quitting shortly after, because I wanted to freelance full time. The more stressful the school got, the more relaxing graphic design got. And I was enjoying a lot of aspects of the school. But the job of just saying no to people all the time and getting yelled at all the time, and all the problems that I had solutions for that were just being turned down, like, it was really hard. There was one point where I was trying to make a scholarship program, because there was a big let's help me with words, disparity in income in the area. Was the richest town in New Jersey and one of the poorest, right next to each other. We had kids coming from both. I had kids that were donating $1,000 equipment to the school just for fun, and I had kids that were coming in my office saying, Rachel, do you have a snack, because my mom couldn't go to the grocery store this week? You know, and when you deal with that every day, and I would say I was like the second mom. I'm just some of the kids, but they did think I was old enough to be that. One kid called me middle-aged. It was great. I was 22. You know, after enough of seeing that, and then we ended up doing a fundraising thing with our like honors group of kids to help fund the tour that we took them on. And we raised $12,000 doing that fundraising. So I was like, what if we do something similar in our community as a give back program? This is like an honor society for music. We should be doing some kind of community service. I pitched it to the CEO of School of Rock. He loved it. He's a great guy. He was always really like on my team. There was nothing wrong with the people. It was just, you have restrictions with a big company, you know? And there were a few parents that absolutely fucking hated my guts, because I had a bleeding heart and kept trying to catch me in doing something wrong, and made up this whole thing that kids were going to the school for free, and my fundraiser idea was really a way to like manipulate the kids into making up my numbers for money that wasn't coming in. Like, it was such a bullshit story. At one point, this one woman reported me to corporate. But the thing is, when you report someone at a school, it goes to the highest person in the school. So one day, I'm with my partner, we're having dinner, and I'm like, there's a complaint. It's about me. And it was like the most psychotic shit I've ever read in my life. I was like, what the fuck? You know, and I wouldn't have been able to figure any of that out without you. You know,
you would have figured it out eventually. It would have taken you way longer.
All right, so
grounded.
Before
you know,
guys start self-deprecating again, my question is: it was really interesting what you said, Rachel, that you were afraid of being lonely way earlier, and I wonder if the helping, and I know both of you have that in you, the helping, was that to kind of help and reach out to people that may have been in that situation or that feeling where you were at the time?
Yeah, I mean, my mental health has always been an adventure. I struggled a lot, and I think it was on two levels, right? On one level, I think I wanted to feel needed, and I wanted to be a part of something. And I think on the other, I didn't want anyone to ever feel the way that I did growing up, you know? You know, the loneliness and feeling rejected and not feeling good enough and feeling like I had to jump through hoops to get people to love me. Like, the things that I felt and the way that it manifested into like a greater just mental health struggle and ways that, you know, it became very self-destructive, and I did things I'm not, you know, particularly an advocate of doing. You know, I saw a lot of potential for that in a lot of the kids that I work with at that school. There were a lot of very like old soul, mature, high thinking young people that did not know what to do with their feelings. And funny enough, I found out as an adult that my middle school music teacher had an agreement with all of my like core subject teachers that if she ever asked to take me out of class to work on things for a concert, they needed to let me go. And I had no idea that there was not actually stuff to work on. She just saw that I needed an advocate and somewhere to go and someone to talk to. And without knowing that I was doing that, I, you know, basically was committing myself to being that for kids too. And, you know, it was a very eye-opening experience. And I think you're spot on with saying that. Like,
you were spot on in saying that.
But I had 2 former students call me tonight to talk about their day. Like,
that's awesome.
I have kids that I'm still in touch with to this day. I have kids that, you know, I saw them have these amazing breakthrough moments, and to even be a participant in that for someone is,
right.
It's incredible, you know? So yeah, I think that did have a lot to do with it.
Good job. Good show. So, Becca, the part you've been waiting for, we're going to put the spotlight on you. Mr. Munoz, could you bring up what Jimmy Nails said about trans people, please, sir?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, that's awesome.
So, Becca, I, too, took notes about what you said. And I'm going to tell you a couple of things you said, and then I know we had a large part of our pre-interview was about this, and I wanted to give you the stage and your ability to talk about the things that we shared. But you did say that you came out to your mom a few months ago, right?
Yeah,
and
like 2 months ago, I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
You told me 4. I'm not nitpicking, but I'm just, you know.
It was like back around like May, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God, August. Wow. Okay. Time is an illusion.
And one of the things you said that a lot of queer people are confused. I'm going to let you elucidate on that. The quote that you had that I was just like, wow. You said setting expectations. You set expectations to not be celebrated for the things that you do. I don't know if you remember saying that.
So I think in the general sense, right? Like everyone's journey and navigation through like the world of gender and sexuality is confusing, right? I think for myself, I didn't really have any exposure to any of that, any part of that world until I went to public school. So I didn't realize for a really long time what the options even were. I just realized the default was, you know, cis and straight. Like I am a woman and I will grow up and get married to a man and have babies and be just like my mom. And then when you finally realize that, hey, there's so many more options. Like if you don't fit into the box that you're given when you're born, like you don't have to stay there. So it's definitely a very confusing experience for me. Just being able to understand who I am. I went through like a lot of different like questioning and thoughts and like talking to different people, a lot of different, I guess, phases of life where, you know, I would identify one way or I would think that I was one thing and then I'd be like, well, you know what, like that doesn't really feel quite right either. And I think that in some ways, I think there's always going to be kind of an in-between space to live in. You know, like I absolutely understand labels, and I think they're important to have, but I don't think they're the most important thing to live your life by. So, like, I personally am trans and non-binary. I think that just like the word non-binary is like a perspective that we need to take in a lot of different aspects of life, because all it really means is that you're not just one thing or the other. It means that there's somewhere in between, somewhere expansive for you to live and exist and to explore. So I think that was one of the biggest things for me, is putting less pressure on myself for a specific definition and just saying, okay, you know, kind of going back to like that expression, right? And speaking your mind. I am just going to exist the way that I want to exist, and I'm not going to put expectations on that. And I'm
That's what the fuck I'm talking about.
And let it come naturally.
I'm talking about Becca. Talk your shit.
Thank you.
That conversation we had earlier today about like people feeling the need to, you know, identify even beyond the gender conversation, just in extremes, and you know, to feel kind of a facade of control by living in an extreme as opposed to like experiencing the middle and finding the unique balance that's right for them.
Right.
And like you tried to be a cis female married to a man, like you tried.
Yeah,
it did not fit you.
I was engaged, yeah, and it ended up not working out for a number of reasons, but my gender and sexuality was one of them.
Right.
So, and I think that I, as a person, have kind of always had a tendency to see in very black and white. So I think realizing that I was non-binary and didn't quite fit in any of the boxes that you're given when you're born, that was something that really opened my eyes to seeing that I needed to be more flexible in every aspect of my life.
Right. And how do you find existing in this kind of new world? Because what you told me, biromantic, asexual, and non-binary. How's it living in that world? Because listen, when there's stuff I don't know what it's like to be in that world. But what's it like living in that world for you?
I think on some level it's just like anyone else. I mean, like those specific like aspects of who I am, you know, like we tend to like break things down. And not everyone is the same. Obviously, I only speak for myself.
Right.
But so there's gender identity, like how you perceive yourself, how you identify, how you express yourself, how you present. And then there's, you know, your romantic and or sexual attraction to other people, like what partners you have. So for myself, I think like it can be difficult. Some people are less informed than others. And of those people, some are very open-minded and either willing to do the work and learn, or at the very least very respectful of you and, you know, accept what you're saying, and, you know, they're not going to try and fight you on it. But there are always going to be people who don't understand, are not interested in understanding.
Dismissive.
Yeah, very dismissive, disrespectful. Thankfully, I haven't had to encounter much of that. You know, there have been some really, really unfortunate, you know, people, like, you know, the amount of, you know, trans women, especially Black trans women, who have been attacked and murdered is absolutely unreal and horrifying. Thankfully, I have, for the most part, you know, been blessed with people surrounding me who are really loving and open-minded and supportive. That's not necessarily the norm. And obviously I've had the occasional experience, you know, I had someone who I was talking to on a dating app say, oh, like, I just reread your profile and I saw you're asexual and that's not going to work for me, and just like unmatched me without another word. And, you know, and this was like another queer person. And I was like, okay, like that's, you know, thank you for being honest and upfront. You know, I think, you know, I'm I don't know. There are people who are not interested in trying to understand people, or in, you know, trying to, there are so many different types of relationships and levels of relationships, you know, like even like with the two of us, right? Like we did not know each other until college, and now we're like tighter than siblings. You know, there are romantic partners, there are acquaintances, and like everything in between, you know? So I think a lot of people kind of, especially when in the dating world, kind of, you know, think of one specific thing as the be all end all, and aren't necessarily open to thinking about or exploring other ways of living or other ways of having a relationship.
I think too, like, I am a cis heterosexual woman, you know, and
What's a cis for? I'm sorry. What's a cis for those that don't know, like Achilles?
Cis is you identify as the gender you were born with, right?
Yeah, that you were assigned at birth. So if the doctor says, "Oh, congrats, you have a girl," and you grow up and you say, "Yeah, I'm a girl," you are cis.
Yeah. So that, I mean, I haven't had to experience any of this. You know, I have had my own like confusion, I think, with the societal implications of gender, because, you know, with the
stereotypes suck.
With the stereotypical, like, I guess, associations with being a woman, I have big problems. Like, I'm definitely a feminist and like a very progressive thinking, independent person. But when it came to,
and we will discuss that later. Stay tuned, people. Go ahead, carry on.
When Becca started experiencing, you know, these big questions and answering them so bravely, I'll admit I didn't understand. And it was, I didn't want to be offensive. But I ultimately decided that, especially for, you know, how close we are, the most respectful thing that I could do was educate myself and ask questions, not in a dismissive or demeaning way. Like, it's one thing to be ignorant and to approach it in a, I just want to understand so I can support you kind of way, versus a belittling, like,
justify yourself for existing.
Yeah, and to have to do that, and that's not right that people have to. But I have to say, like, I had a lot of questions, and I still do sometimes. And you have answered them with so much strength and you know, compassion for my confusion that you didn't have. You know, like, you don't have to explain yourself to be able to exist, and you don't have to like justify your identity to anyone. You don't owe anyone an explanation, and you don't, you know, you don't have to work for people's approval. But at the same time, you know, there are people who are so turned off by questions because of the trauma associated with being rejected for who you are. And I think that in your situation, it must have been really hard to do so, but you have handled every question I've ever seen anyone ask you and every question I've ever asked you with like such eloquence and you know, kindness. And you know, it is a really cool thing when we can have a conversation about things we don't understand instead of, you know, running away from them or them bad. And you know, you do a really good job of that.
Thank you.
So I think you do have a big fan in Jimmy Nails, Becca. I was going to ask you.
Yeah. So
hold on one second. Sorry, I just want to say that you told me your main reasons for like coming out to your mom was that you wanted to set a boundary, you wanted to educate people, and this is a little along the lines of what Rachel was talking about. So how are things with your mom now?
Things with my mom are good. The reason that I had finally decided to come out to her was because I was just starting to feel uncomfortable with some of the conversational topics that we were having, because she would bring up certain discussions about like current events or whatever and start to make like broad generalizations, you know, about like the LGBT community or, you know, politics or whatever it is, not realizing that I was a part of a lot of the groups that she was discussing. And I have had a history of like really like kind of hiding myself and my interests and a lot of aspects of my personality. So I finally worked up the courage and I wrote her an email because I couldn't do it face to face. And
beautiful email.
Thank you. So we exchanged a couple of emails back and forth. She also had a bunch of questions for someone who is extremely religious and very much is on the train of like, you know, like LGBT identities aren't, you know, natural, that sort of thing. She still shows me an immense amount of respect as a person. She, you know, one of the first things she said in her email back to me was a reminder that, you know, of how much she loved me. I think she doesn't understand it completely. She may never.
Mhm.
Our relationship is much better now. Like we're able to exist a lot more peacefully, knowing that certain topics are just not okay for us to talk about because one or both of us is going to end up with hurt feelings, and we would rather, keep things polite and comfortable between the two of us. That definitely doesn't work for everyone.
Mhm.
I'm hopeful that someday we will both be in a place where we can, approach it and talk about it more. At the current time, that's not something that I can do with her, but I am very, very grateful to her that she, was able to accept that news with grace and not let it, change her affection for me and her, care for me. A lot of young queer people are not that lucky.
No.
Do you remember the text my mom sent you asking questions about that celebrity?
Yeah, Rachel's mom is so funny. She's very, I guess, old fashioned. She's a little. She's not
broken
Italian
Italian,
at all. Very much so. But so like the first time that she ended up in a conversation with us, she was so confused, and it took us probably 20 minutes just to explain, like, just to help her understand like what trans is, like.
Right.
Lone non-binary.
We did a diagram, right? We did a whole,
we had like a little Venn
presentation.
diagram and everything, visual aids. But
That's
then
so you guys. I love it.
Right. But then like after that happened, and like she was like so totally on board, like as soon as Demi Lovato came out as non-binary and started using they them pronouns, I got a text from your mom that was like, oh my god, did you see, like Demi is a they them, like she was like, that's so exciting.
She was like, what do your people, what do you say when you are introducing and you're asking for someone's pronouns? Do you say, hello Nancy, are you a them? No, don't do that. But like, I think that was a warm up to the more serious conversation of your mom. Like it's different for different people, right? Yeah, you had to come out in a lot of different ways. And
I think when you are trans and or non-binary, you are never out and done with it. You are always going to be continually coming out to people that you meet or that you know. Sometimes it's people who have known you since you were this big, and they have to very drastically wrap their heads around a big change in the person they thought they knew. Sometimes it's, coworkers who have only ever known you as you are, and then, maybe something comes up like in paperwork or whatever it is, and, you kind of can make the decision in a number of ways throughout your life, like who gets to be privy to that information.
Right.
Not about, to me, it's not about, hiding yourself and who you are. Like, I don't, obviously aside from the matter of like safety, I don't think that anyone really like chooses to hide that they're trans or non-binary because they're ashamed of it. They just don't feel the need to say it all the time because it's just who they are. Like, it doesn't become a big deal. You don't come up and say, oh, well, I'm a brunette. Like, it's just who you are.
I have a question for you. Does it get easier the more you go through that process?
Yes and no. It's definitely.
That's nice.
Oh, thank you, Jimmy.
Sorry,
thank
I don't want
you.
to miss that.
Yes and no. I think that in a number of ways it does get much easier. Like the first time that I said it out loud, like when I was first like questioning my gender, and trying to figure out, like, untangle like what it meant for me and what kind of impact it would have on my life, I still hadn't said it out loud to anyone. So like the night that I like finally told you that like this is the big issue that I'm wrestling with right now, like I've been thinking about like my pronouns and all of that stuff, like the very first time that I asked anyone to use they them pronouns for me, it was incredibly intense and emotional because it's bearing a very deep part of yourself and a really dramatic question that you wrestle with to try and answer about this big part of who you are. And I think that as time goes on, it definitely gets much easier. It's not, such a big deal now to say, except for some people, like with certain people, it's still, a bigger issue for me to talk to them about it, maybe because, they're relatives who have known me for so long or who are, very unfamiliar with the language and terms of LGBT. And so it requires a much more in-depth conversation. But in general, I think what does get much easier is being able to kind of stand up and say, this is who I am, this is part of who I am, and that is not going to change, and I embrace it and, love it as part of myself.
I think what's changed is in the process. What's changed your loving and accepting of yourself.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, you took a chance on yourself. Somebody said that.
Yeah.
Rachel, you're pretty profound tonight, I must say.
Thank
Pretty
you.
profound tonight. So, thank you for sharing.
Of course. Thank you.
I thank you for letting us hear your journey, because it might not necessarily resonate with me like it's obviously resonating with Jimmy, and that's awesome. And I'm glad that someone was here, people were here to hear what you had to say, because it's going to impact them. Just like when, people hear Rachel's story and both your stories together, your combined stories, and it's going to resonate with young ladies and young people going through changes and trying to figure out who they are. And, it even resonates with me, and I'm not any of the pronouns. I'm just an Achille, and it's okay. And I'm okay with that. But it still means a lot that you're able to share so openly, because not everybody is. And I feel like a lot of people get frustrated and upset and angry, but they're not telling their story as freely and openly as you are.
Yeah, it's not easy to do. And I
no, not at all.
Nobody owes that story to anyone. Nope. But I think to be able to tell it is a really brave thing. Right. And own it, proudly.
Yeah.
Like such a lovely and courteous person.
The compassion of a saint. That's true.
Thank you.
Fan favorites. All right, stop showing off now. So to transition a little bit, and we're going to talk about the co-branding in a little bit, but Becca was talking about mom. I know, Rachel, you had said that your parents went through a divorce, and that was actually like a really big, eye-opener, turning point in your, life at the time. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Earth-shattering. I mean, I never thought my parents to have the picture perfect marriage, but it was more for me about family, and about that sense of being a part of a family. And, when I was a kid, I had a big sense of family. I grew up in a big Italian family. My grandma was my best friend. She was matriarch. She held it all together. And after she passed away, I was 12, and I started to feel that unit kind of shake up and break apart. But there was still me and my parents, me and my parents in it together, blah, blah, blah. And, growing up, my dad was my person, and he still very much is. And my mom and I didn't always see eye to eye, but we were there for each other, and together we made it work. And I knew they weren't going to stay together. I knew that was going to happen. I had asked them at points when I was younger to just so that they could be happy, and so that we could have peace. Because it was obvious to me, at least, being in that dynamic, that they weren't really growing closer with age. And people grow apart. I think that them splitting was the right thing for them to do. And I think that knowing who they are as people now, it was the best thing they could have done for themselves. But, being an adult child of divorce is really hard, because not only are you kind of grieving the loss of the sense of family and kind of a family unit, but you're also leaned on, I think, in ways that you're not when you're a kid. Mm-hmm. I moved over 80 boxes of my dad's out because he was really struggling the day he moved out. And it was the hardest day of my life. Oh. I was the middleman a lot. My college graduation was a fucking nightmare because I had to keep them apart. I worry about my wedding day sometimes. It definitely, I think for me, is something, I'm gonna get a little choked up. Something that was, hard as I've gotten older is letting go of the need to have that traditional family unit.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, I'm lucky. I met my partner when I was 18 years old. We've been together a long time. And, the night that my parents sat me down to say, like, we're done, he was sitting next to me, and it's almost like as that family unit kind of dispersed into its own thing, we started to create a new one.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm lucky to have had that, and like even within just our household now, like I have him and I have my best friend, and
I have a very small, very old dog,
very cranky little grandpa dog. And, I have really strong relationships that have their own complications with each of my parents individually. And there's really nothing that all three of us do together, and that's hard sometimes. And the ways that my dynamic with my parents individually, the way that dynamic has evolved has been hard for me too. I mean, I still struggle a lot with just the sense of family and the sense of belonging and feeling like I don't really fit into any of the things that I thought I had to fit to be a valid person growing up. Groups or, whatever. I felt very much like the odd man out in a lot of ways. And I think that was like the last kind of facade of fitting kind of going away and having to start to accept, like, I need to be okay by myself instead of desperately clinging to these groups that I feel like give me validity as a person and safety and, that I can't survive without. And
Oh, wow.
It brought up a lot of questions that I think people have to answer anyway in their early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And it told my parents to be flawed human beings instead of, the omnipotent beings we always assume our parents are when we're kids, which happens anyway a lot of the time. So I think it was just a lot of growing up really fast and a lot of safety nets that I depended on a lot kind of revealing themselves to not be what I thought they were. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, my parents are amazing people. Their marriage taught me and my partner what not to do in a very important way. And we paid attention. And we had difficult conversations and we said, I see how that happened. How can we, now in our 20s, establish different things so that when we're in our 50s, that doesn't happen to us? How can we make time for each other? How can we make sure that the other feels appreciated and heard and that we're growing together instead of apart? And it was not an easy thing to go through at any age.
No.
Not for me, not for them. That was one of the hardest things that they went through too. But you get through, you figure it out. And that's all you can do.
So you both, and you said valid person, and I'll start with that because you both have found ways to validate yourself, I think, in your head when you didn't necessarily need it. But you guys are both going through so much loss, and it's parental type loss. And it's not the same, but it's just so many things have caused you, your mom and dad, and it's a lot of loss. And you guys are going through that together. Yeah. And I know, and I know for me, both my parents passed away. So I know how it is to have that loss. So how do you guys get to the place you are emotionally and strength-wise today? How did you get there?
I mean,
a lot of chocolate and ice cream.
I think for me, the most important thing has been learning to tell the truth when it's hard. I've been doing a lot of work just trying to love myself, like genuinely, trying to look less to others. Like there are times, and I have such great support. Like there are times that I'll be talking to my partner and I'll be like, I don't know what I'd do without you. And instead of like giving into that, he's like, you'd be fine. You'd be perfectly fine. You're fine. Like there are little ways that like both Becca and Jimmy have done a lot while I've been going through kind of trying to get my firm footing. Instead of like continuing to perpetuate the awful things that I can say about myself and the ways that I can kind of fall, they're like, no, so you're okay, actually. Yeah. And, and I think for me, it's about being honest with where my weaknesses are and being gentle with myself and feeling my feelings, giving myself a space to feel them and not invalidate them, but also to know that we can feel our feelings and we can also move forward. You know, we can create the space to go through the feelings. We can't avoid that. When we avoid that, they manifest in really ugly ways later, you know? But also that doesn't have to be a consuming process. It can be just a cathartic process and a healing process and maybe a painful process. But on the other end, it's like, okay, what now? You know, I felt my feelings. I think there was like something on Instagram. I want to say my cousin shared it, and it was like, I cried and now it's time to boss it up. And like, that's, I guess, kind of what I do. Like, okay, I'm ice cream and I'm gonna cry about it and I'm probably gonna complain to Becca for like 6 hours and then make a plan.
Then you get up and you
dust myself off and do, you know? How about you?
I think the way that I got through it for the most part was, especially like for the way that I grew up, like being the oldest of a large family and being depended on so much throughout my life by so many different people. I think the thing that has really made a difference for me is really trying to internalize and understand that like I can do things for me now. I'm not doing things for other people. And that gives me an immense amount of freedom because I don't have to watch what I say anymore. I don't have to, dress a certain way. It's incredibly freeing and, makes me feel like a much more authentic and honest person. Because rather than trying to live up to the expectations of everyone around me, which is a completely unreasonable goal to set for yourself, you get to, kind of make things up as you go along. And, maybe next weekend I want to go to a concert, and the weekend after that I'm going to stay in and read, and the weekend after that, I'm going to do some extra work and get work done because I feel super productive and we have a lot to get done. It's a way to listen to yourself and your body and your mind and your own needs in order to really take care of yourself.
And not to judge them too.
Yeah.
Like not to say like, I shouldn't be doing this and I shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, like we struggle with the same things, but like opposite sides of the coin. Like I have so much fucking anxiety. I'm a literal ball of anxiety. And there are times where I'm so caught up in that like I have trouble being, rational. And, I grew up with a lot of people who made me feel really dumb and bad for that. People who said your anxiety gives me anxiety. Can you stop? Like, oh my God, thank you for saying that. I found the switch. Let me turn it off.
Let me turn it off right now.
Come on. And for me to be with people who are like, okay, like that's valid. That must be hard, but you're safe. Nothing bad has happened. There's nothing cataclysmic going on. Let's work through this. Let's figure it out. Like, why don't you take a minute, get it out, and then, we'll talk about it. And I know, like with you, you have the tendency sometimes, well, I'm not going to speak about your feelings, but like, it's a similar thing where like you're struggling in a place where I happen to be kind of grounded. So I can kind of, do that for you too.
We're very good at like patching each other up and like getting each other through things.
Yeah.
And that's valuable in like navigating everything and figuring it all out.
I like it. So now that we've talked about a portion of your immensely productive lives, co-branding. Matt, can you bring up the pictures, please, Mr. Munoz? Show them a sample of the website. This is El Poeta Guasan that the two lovely people here designed. Gave it a comic book theme, and we'll talk about that in 1 second. And can you bring up the other one, please? And this is Carter Life Visions. This is me and Patricia's website where we work a lot with families. Thank you, sir. So, how did you get to co-branding? This, I know it's an Oregon Trail. I'm gonna need you to shorten it down to like a little jaunt through the woods.
It was an accident. It was a total fucking accident. I'm so happy for it, but it was an accident. I quit my job at
January 2020, right?
2020, yep. And decided that I would freelance full time. I had been freelancing since 2014. I had a decent clientele, but I was really struggling to make it consistent. And like I had all of this business development and management experience from School of Rock, but didn't really understand how to like make it make sense in a freelance context. I ended up working with this incredible coach named Amy Dugan, who is like a sage upon sages. She's like a friggin' god. And her business is called Online Biz Academy. And
it's called the what?
Online Biz Academy.
Online.
Of course, for women who are in service-based businesses and want to do their own thing. And I ended up working with her and going through her program, and it like completely opened up the fucking floodgates. Like it changed everything. And all of a sudden I went from being a freelancer and like, will I be able to pay for dinner this week or no? You know, like I remember one night we were out with friends and Jimmy took the bill and he was like, well, you are a freelancer. And I was like, you are correct. Like, it's true, you know, like the realities of it are not cute. It takes a while to stabilize, you know, and I was just a couple weeks in and like, fucked. Like I was terrified. I started applying for jobs about when I found Amy's program. I was gonna close the book on it. And by the time I had finished her program, I realized that I couldn't do it by myself. And it was about when the pandemic hit. So your teaching had slowed down.
My hours had super dropped because I was still teaching at the time, and half of our students had stopped taking lessons because of the pandemic, and we were moving online. But a lot of people weren't interested in the format. So my hours had dropped. I wasn't making enough money. I had all this extra time.
And you had just moved in. You had just broken off your engagement and moved in by me. So we were together all the time. And I was like, help. To the rescue. And it grew into what it is now. You know, it was an adventure in the last year and a half. But it's been amazing.
Yeah.
You know?
And I started as more of like an administrative assistant. So I was like doing like answering emails and phone calls and like sending messages and stuff like that. Until Rachel needed more help on like the design end of things. And
I was like, day.
Well, I'm not a designer. Like you went to school for this stuff. I don't know what I'm doing.
We sat down one day and I was like, this seems to be really growing. What would make you the happiest to do? And they're like, I want to be a web designer.
It's like, I want to be artistic and creative and do pretty things too.
I was like, okay. You're going to 5 minutes.
She taught me how to make a website.
Do you consider yourself artistic and creative?
Me? Oh, for sure. I'm very much, growing up, I was never really like the visual artist person. Like, you know, my sister especially like was very much like the painter and, you know, drawer and stuff like that.
I wish you had your sweater that you made. The most talented crocheter, like
I love
binder,
crocheting, sewing. I've really gotten really into book binding over quarantine because of TikTok mostly. So I'm very on like the craftsy end where I'm like making things a lot. And, you know, the websites, I think for me are a super fun way to do something, you know, visually artistic and creative, but then also I really enjoy the writing aspect of it too, because I have loved reading and writing like my entire life. And it's something that I wasn't really getting to do much of. So, you know, being able to kind of get back into that and do more writing is really, really fun. So it's kind of like the perfect blend for me.
And when it's all the shit that I just no longer have the brain span or patience for. So it's really convenient.
It's like the perfect division of labor.
And we ended up, you know, we scaled up too big for our britches, and I ended up basically being a manager again. And I was like, I did this to be creative.
Yeah.
I ended up coming back down, which I'm a psycho and made sure that every person that worked with us had another job lined up before. Like I was like, are you okay? And then we scaled back down to just the two of us. And you know, as soon as I was able to tell the truth and say, I'm not going to scale this to the moon because it's what I'm supposed to do to be successful. I'm going to do this because I want to do it. I ended up a business coach with Amy. So I do work with Online Biz Academy. The two of us now coach together, and I fell in love with coaching. And I realized that, you know, branding as a process, like the more, I guess, typical way of doing it, the more words.
Like cookie cutter method.
Fuck, there's a very specific word that's just like goodbye. Yeah, I guess just the way it's accepted
Traditionally.
Thank you, there it is.
You're welcome.
I don't know why I was thinking colonial. That's not. God help me.
The colonial way of branding. I like it.
You had custody of the brain cell in that moment.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So the more traditional way of getting it done, it's very it's not very personal. It's not very, even when it does get personal, it's very transactional. It's not very communicative. It's not very involved. It's like, here is what I did. What do you like? What do you not like? Thank you, bye. And that's a very daunting process for people. And what I learned, after a year of having the business and all the years that I'd spent freelancing and doing design in the past, was people need more support than that.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, I wasn't feeling fulfilled by just like vomiting art and saying, do you like it or no? It's selling the process short. What I ended up doing more recently is kind of making more of a brand coaching program where we can get into a deeper thing. I mean, your brand is the face of what you do. It's how the world sees you. And it's more than just an aesthetic element. It's also, how do things function? How do you feel about it? What's the messaging? What do you do? How, are you happy? Like, it's a very deep rooted experience. And to be able to, really sink your teeth into that and to have a forum to do so. So we do now an 8-week coaching program where, I'll work really closely with the clients. And, we'll make designs live on calls, and, Becca will take care of like putting together the website in between calls and whatever. Like, it's a very unique process.
Yeah.
That has ended up being a kind of opportunity to really expand what the word brand means. So it's been really cool and really fulfilling and just so exciting, like, to use creativity and art to empower people and, to work with them in a way that opens their mind to what they're capable of and to help them solve problems. So that way they leave not just with an aesthetically pleasing appearance, but with something that works for them and sets them up for success, as opposed to like, I did this because I thought I was supposed to, yay. There's no magic pill that teaches you how to be an entrepreneur.
I think especially for us, because a lot of the people that we've worked with are in the health and wellness fields, and we are both people who have really had our own personal struggles in those fields. It's really, really important to us that the things that we're doing are indirectly helping so many other people, because it's making access to these services. Like, we've worked with a bunch of therapists, we've had life coaches, personal trainers. It's by no means the only thing that we do, but we find that a lot of the people we work with are from those fields because they're really good at helping people and tend to be really bad at selling themselves, because they are such, like empathetic people who care so much about the people they're helping. It doesn't feel authentic or genuine to try and sell themselves. So the way that we set it up and that we help just get their name out there and make these services accessible is really helping, hundreds, if not thousands of other people get access to therapy and life coaching and, nutrition and all that sort of stuff.
It's about establishing trust, right? And it's about communicating and making sure that it's a fit. I remember being like 13, 14, looking for a therapist and being terrified and just judging who I would, confide in based on like a smile on a website, and to be able to expand on that now in this career that we have, and to be able to basically say, hey, little kid, it's not just this like, do you have a good vibe about the way this person smiles in a picture? It's like, here is this person on a piece of paper, or rather a website. Here is this practitioner in their most empowered way, here to connect with you. And here is all the information and presence that you need to know that you can be safe and comfortable here and get the help that you need. And on the practitioner's end, you don't want to work with people that aren't a fit for you. You're not going to help them. It's draining on all ends. So, for us, it's almost like setting up the tools to be a matchmaker between practitioners and patients and to empower people to do that for themselves.
Yeah.
We're not here to like hold your hand for your entire career. We're here to give you all the tools you need so you can go out there and do it yourself,
Yeah.
and do so without the constant financial drain of working with an agency continually and the constant like being spread in all these directions. It's not about, wearing a million hats. It's about taking all those hats and making them actually fit your head, and doing so in a way that also, I know, right? What is this?
Oh my God. Who is this person, Becca?
Doing so in a way that also feels genuine and authentic, because whether you're a health and wellness practitioner, which is, where we do specialize, we've been working more and more within the music field too, which is really full circle and cool. We've been working with a lot of small businesses too. So, private investigation, law firms, it's
retail.
Yeah, retail. We did some retail.
Like online retail.
That's
We
awesome.
do service based, but it's really just like, how do we?
And it seems like it's growing a lot too.
It is. It's funny. It's growing more with less people, but it's about, how do we empower you? How do we set you up for success in the unique way that will best suit you?
Yeah.
And how do we tell the world most authentically who you are? And if we can get you there, like that's really what we're looking to do.
Because if you have a good website, you don't have to work to sell yourself. Just by reading the website, people are going to realize right off the bat if you are the person who will help them or not.
And there's an insane amount of people who will click away if something doesn't captivate them within seconds.
Yeah.
The attention span, I mean, look at like TikTok and Instagram and like all the social media that we're kind of conditioned to consume. It's more and more like tiny bursts of like, do you like this or no? Yeah. Okay, you didn't answer fast enough. Moving on. So it's how do we empower our clients to make that impactful connection within this tiny baby window of the modern attention span and the technological platforms they have access to. That's what we do.
I love it. You guys dropping knowledge as usual. So, got a couple of minutes left. So, do you prefer to work with clients that are creative and they work with you, or do you prefer to work with clients where you're like, okay, it's a blank slate, we got to figure, we'll say 85% of it out?
I don't think I have a preference. I think it's a different experience.
Yeah, they both have their own unique pros and cons.
Yeah, like I think the creative, it's exciting because it's really a collaboration.
Yeah, you can bounce ideas back and forth.
And then there's, the person that like everything you do is like they're amazed and it's like witchcraft and they're like,
you are Harkness. Don't forget.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's, either way, it's empowerment. And, I think that for me, this is going to sound so like cliche, but I don't like to lump our clients into categories like that because I think that everyone has such a unique set of needs and such a unique kind of landscape of like where they need more support and where they feel more strong. And for us, it's a matter of like, we have a protocol for the really creative and, the more like confused. It's more, we get to know you. And then once we can do that, it's about how do we best uniquely serve you with background and the skill set and the gaps and the different needs for support that you might have.
What's the next step, the next phase, the next look for co-branding?
I think we're going to do a little more with music. I think we're going to do a little more with business in general. Health and wellness will always be our heart and soul, and it will continue to be. But we've also realized that what we do can serve people in those areas too. So that's pretty fun. But really, I think what's next is we're going to ask less of what's next. I think we're just going to really enjoy being where we are and not let ourselves feel the pressure to be something huge, because for us, all we want is to wake up, be creative, comfortably pay our bills, go on adventures, live our lives and help people,
I think that's something that's been really important for us to realize together. Like, I think there are a lot of people who, you know, when they get the idea to become an entrepreneur or start their own business, I think some people really get it into their heads that, okay, you know, I need to be the next Steve Jobs, the next Jeffrey Bezos, and build, you know, a multi-billion-dollar company in order to, you know, be successful and have a good business. But, you know, that's a fraction of a percent of the businesses that exist. And that for us, the core of being an entrepreneur is working for yourself and supporting your own needs.
It's also back to that.
Hold on. I'm sorry. I got to interrupt you for 1 second. It's officially my wife's birthday, so I want to say happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Patty!
To my darling Patricia. Love you. Happy birthday. Carry on.
Happy birthday! That's so exciting. Yeah. I think for us, you know, a very grounding thing, like when I first started to scale the business, I think a big part of me was trying to give to others what I couldn't give as the no man at my old job.
You get a salary and you get a salary. You get a paid vacation. And
until I had nothing left for me, you know?
Yeah.
And there comes a point, it's very important when you're an entrepreneur to look in the mirror and say, okay, what am I actually doing? Why am I doing it? You know, what am I trying to get out of it? And I had a client, she's an acupuncturist. Happy birthday, Patty. She's an acupuncturist, and one of the first thing that we always do is a goal setting session. We sit down, we talk, we get really clear on what the fuck you even want, you know? And she was like, I have my own practice. I work in a building with other practitioners. I rent a room. I ultimately want to then branch out and have my own practice. And then I want to move to Spain. And I'm like, cool, I get the Spain thing. That's really great that you're doing what you're doing. What about what you're doing right now isn't your own practice? And she was like, well, there are other people in the building. I'm like, do you want to be a landlord? Like, I'm confused. It was almost, you know, by the fifth week or so of our work together, I was like, what about what you have now isn't your own practice? And she was like, well, it's just the logical next step. It's what I'm supposed to do. That's not a reason to do anything ever, you know? And I think that when we're prompted with what's next a lot, it's not just something that we do in conversation. It's something that we do in our culture. It's always look for the next thing. But you know, I think that.
Didn't know you were going to attack my question, Rachel.
No, sorry. But it's
No, I'm good. I'm joking.
You know, it's a matter of being honest with your ambition and then really being satisfied with the path required for that. My ambition isn't to have a business that brings in 7 figures a year. Would that be cool? Sure. Did I think that was what I was supposed to do to be successful? Yes. But I'm not in this business to be labeled as successful by a broad societal term. I'm in this to fulfill myself, to do something cool with my best friend, to be creative, to support myself and my family, to have the flexibility to be a mother and be, you know, have a family of my own and take care of that while my partner, you know, does his thing. And people's lives, you know, the best way that I can. And you know, give them, I know I say empowerment like every 30 seconds, but it's because that's the goal, you know? And I don't have to be Steve Jobs to do that, you know? Nope. It's a matter of finding our people and giving them the tools they need to find their people and so on, you know?
Wow. Well, peeps, that was a very abrupt 2 hours.
I actually have a question for you before we go. I'm really curious.
Yes, please.
Was there one thing in the banding process with us that really, you know, took you by surprise or like came out of left field for you? Something you weren't expecting?
Surprise? I don't think it was surprise. How much you incorporated the Joker into what I actually, like, you listened to what I said I wanted. And, you know, I was just like, oh, the Joker I like, and this and that, and comic book. And then you literally took it and you took some Play-Doh and you molded and you made a website that resonated with me, like from the colors, from the look of it, from the feel. and it's very much me. And anybody who knows me knows how randomly weird I am, and unique.
You're an anomaly.
Of course, I'm an anomaly, but that's
Anomaly.
that's what we all seek out to be, an anomaly. Well, that's what we all should seek out to be, but so many people get caught up in, well, I've watched 700 TikTok videos of everybody doing the same dance, so of course I have to do the same dance. But, how many people are on TikTok making their own dances?
True.
And then people are like, oh, what's this weirdo doing their own stuff? They're being creative. So I think that how much it resonated with me was good. And I liked how much you guys just arted, how much you just did what you do. And I didn't want to get in that way because I know being somebody who creates, when people are like, write me a poem about what? I don't care, anything. Well,
oh my God, yeah. You are fucking great to work with. And I know it's because you understand the creative process, and not everybody does. We have clients we work with for 6 months and we're like, okay, like we're here. And well, now I hate the color green.
And they really hold themselves back.
Oh my
from
God.
doing that final step, whether it's just like being scared of commitment or whatever it is.
Which is why we figured out the coaching component is so important to incorporate more of that. It's confusing,
Yes. I think that just because of the dynamics of your personalities too, that's a great, not next step, because I got yelled at when I said that before, but that's a great, way to expand upon your services, because you two are so uniquely, like, you balance each other off so well. And I think you bring the all-encompassing, uber talented, uber professional, robotic, like, oh, I have to figure this out and this out. And, like, even from the calls with Becca, where they're like, do this. Okay, next, this. And I'm just like, oh my God, my brain's going to explode. But it's efficient and it's to the point. And I think it's dope.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So you two are amazing, and co-branding is amazing. Co-brandingstudio.com, correctly?
Yes.
The website is in the description. I know Jimmy Nails, you have a new fan, Becca. Mr. Jimmy Nails is very excited that you're on the show. So what I'm going to do, actually, is I was looking through one of my books, and what I've been doing is reading poems at the end. So, Becca, I found a poem that you might like. And then we're going to say goodbye. It's called Genderless.
Ooh.
What if love was genderless? Like love didn't care who fell into it as much as we care. Do you think love would pass laws and sign bills decreeing it? You both had to be a great gender to really be in love. What if love was genderless? What if it just mattered that you liked the other person a lot? What if he could kiss his boyfriend without anyone caring? It would be so surreal if she could love on her girl without anyone frowning their brow. Do we have to call it gay marriage? I mean, how about we don't legalize it? Maybe we just call it marriage because they're in love. I don't want to place distinction on what love is. You can't quote Bible scriptures and tell me I'm wrong. I'm sorry, you can quote Bible scriptures and tell me I'm wrong, but I can quote stories of heart and emotion. Which one do you think should be used to define love? What if love was genderless and you didn't care who they dated because they're dating someone that is like them? I decree that today, National Let People Love Who They Want They, and make an effort to make love genderless, because last I checked, love doesn't care.
I love that. That was
So
beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I want to thank you two immensely for coming on. You are fab, Uyuloso, as always. I'm sure there will be a request for a second show and a third show and a 15th show and all that stuff.
You didn't have any other guests, right?
You see,
Jimmy Nails?
Yes, we would love to work with you.
That would be the coolest. That would be the coolest.
yes, they are amazing to work with. They're awesome. Matt, can you bring up the slate for me? Matt, wake up. So next week is my friend Michelle Pierre. She's an ABA therapist. Then James is going to be on the 29th at 7 p.m. Then on the 31st, I'm going to be interviewed where Matt is going to actually interview the interviewer. All right, you can drop it, sir. Thank you.
I'm tuning into that one.
Yes. So once again, I thank you too. And as the profound today and always, Rachel said, live your life.
Fuck yeah.
That's it. That's how it ended. Live your life.
Thank you so much, Achille. This was so much fun.
You guys stay around. And Matt, you can take us out. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Like, subscribe, all the fun stuff. Nanu, nanu.